Okay, it is Wednesday, and we got a lot to do. I actually sent out something earlier tonight. I watched a movie Hancock last night before I went to bed because after I do these things, I'm pretty riled up when I'm done, even if I feel crappy, and so I have to watch something just to undo my brain. Sadly, most of the movies I have don't allow my brain to undo because they're all obviously part of this same giant scheme, this giant show that we're involved in. Anyway, I watched a Will Smith movie last night called Hancock. And there's so much in that movie, but it's a really fun movie when your eyes are open because of the idea of the superheroes and all that stuff. But what's really interesting in this movie, and I only put a little over 2 minute segment up for everybody to watch it. I'm going to go through that. Before I get to the industrial property for tonight, I want to actually have a little bit of fun because for 2 minutes and 15 or 16 seconds, Hancock is describing what the afterbirth is. He's describing himself and how he woke up in a hospital with amnesia. But I'm gonna cover this. I printed off, I don't know, about nine pages of definitions or terms. So I put that together for everybody just so they could follow along, so that they didn't have to flick pages in Black's Law or go online and look them up as I go. So I put this little handout together for everybody tonight. Hopefully you guys have it in front of you. Hopefully you printed it off because it's a little easier to work that way. But I'm going to go through this 2 minutes. I'm going to break it down, and it's going to be fun. It's really going to be fun because most people really struggle with the idea of this left behind material as something more than just waste material. More than just waste material. I've had lots of conversation with you guys over the last couple weeks, and I'll say pleasantly surprised at a lot of your knowledge at this point. I'm really surprised. I've always told people that I'm looking for 10 people that will actually get this because then my job is done. If I can find 10 people that can go out and be comfortable enough to know this so well that they're going to influence, in their circle of influence, they're going to be able to influence at least 10 people. Because you know that, it doesn't take a whole lot. 10 times 10 times 10, what is it, 8, 9 generations of 10? And it's the whole world. So if we all only have a circle of influence of 10 people, that's everybody. I don't need to influence 1,000 people. I need to influence 10. And then the people that you can influence, I can't probably influence anyway. I'll tell you when I'm successful. When I feel successful is when somebody that my son admires comes up to him and starts talking about the material that I have been talking about. And my son goes, "Oh, wow, man, that's the same stuff my dad's been talking about." That's when I'll know that I'm successful at this stuff. Because then my son will be listening to his sphere of influence or those that influence him because I'm just dad. And, we don't really have a whole lot of street cred with our own families, so to speak. By the way, I don't normally use, that kind of inner city garbage language, but it was just kind of fun to say that too. So anyway, let's get started with Hancock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to pull up the video. And I think that everybody right now, if you have the opportunity to watch it, let's take the 2 minutes together and watch it again so it's fresh in our mind. And then I'm going to go through this thing probably not quite frame by frame, but I'm going to go through, 8, 10, 15, 20 seconds at a time, maybe 30 seconds at a time, and go through my paperwork because this is pretty amazing stuff to actually see it on film and know what is going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and start mine right now, and I'm going to stop it but at the end of it. So let's just all take about 2 minutes and 16 seconds, and watch this damn thing again, and then I'll come back after I'm done watching it.
You're from another planet, are you? You're well, Miami or that I got. He told me I tried. No. That sounds great. I spent the first trying to get my arm just broke. Scared. I had myself.
Okay. I know that was 2 minutes and 16 seconds of silence, but I really think this is important stuff. I can't even imagine. I mean, I can tear down almost every line from all of these actors in this movie. The very first thing to me is you got the one guy talking about almost superhero-like, obviously the only way you got all this power is through some government experiment or you came from some other planet. What's interesting about that, he says, you came in on a meteor, you're some other planet. So let's go to the paperwork here, and I'm going to break this down about every 30 seconds. And when we're done with this, we'll get over to the other stuff, but I think it's important how much is in this. So meteor. I went to Merriam-Webster, and I looked up meteor. They didn't have it, obviously, in Black's Law, but it says an atmospheric phenomena as lightning or a snowfall. 2, any of the small particles of matter in the solar system that are directly observable only by their incandescence from frictional heating on entry into the atmosphere. I want you to understand, you need to start thinking on a really, really small scale. The last one here says a streak of light produced by the passage of a meteor. We've all seen it. Just recently, I viewed a video, and by the way, on the paperwork, I put the video in there. There's a live link to it on your paperwork that should work for you. But Brittany sent me a link showing the fertilization process, where a sperm actually penetrates the cell wall of the ovum. And there is a flash, a chemical flash of basically lightning. In other words, you got this thing coming from the sky, something from outside of Mother Earth, meaning that the ovum itself is part of Mother Earth. Again, when Dad comes down from the sky, when Heavenly Father comes down from the sky, and I'm going to get vulgar here for a second, but plows the field of Mother Earth, and seeds Mother Earth. Upon the conception, at that moment, there is a flash of light. And it's in this link. You got to think of the sperm as a meteor coming onto the earth itself, which is the ovum. What's really, really strange is in the latest James Bond movie called Spectre, there's a scene in there where they're looking at a meteor. And all three of the characters that represent all three positions I've been talking about, baby, chorion, and maternal afterbirth, are all in the same room. And they're talking about this meteor, how it entered the atmosphere and how it hit the earth. They're describing the exact same scene as a sperm penetrating the ovum. In fact, the shape of the meteor that they're talking around looks like a sperm. People, this is so obvious for those that have the eyes to see it. The movie was called Spectre. It's the latest James Bond movie. And with the new information, the new science that are allowing us to see that there is a flash of light, an actual lightning bolt, a lightning strike upon conception. So, I mean, in the very first scene here, he's saying, "Oh, you didn't come in on a meteor. You didn't." Well, yeah, actually, he did. All of the birth material came in on a meteor called sperm. All of it. All of the birth material is a result of the penetration of the sperm into the ovum or the egg. I took the word the streak of light produced by the passage of a meteor because I already knew where the word passage was going to take me. So it says passage. By the way, unless otherwise noted, I took everything out of Black's Law, unless otherwise noted. Passage. By the way, in the lyrics of Hotel California, and remember that a hotel is no different than a lodge or lodging. So Hotel California is a lodge. By the way, what is the first lodge ever in the United States of America? Well, it's the White House. You could actually look that up, and it's the very first lodge, Freemason lodge in North America is the White House. It's actually a lodge. It's called a lodge. Anyway, passage, an act of passing, transit, transition, away, over water or land or through the air. Away, over water, land, or through the air. What's interesting about those three positions is that if anybody has read Judge Anna's book, she talks about those three realms, the air, the land, and the water. She says that the air is the spirit realm, and that is ruled by the church, the ecclesia, the air, the spirit world. In other words, I always joke about everybody that's only in spirit only as being aliens. On multiple levels I speak of that. Why? Because what is an alien? What is an alien? Well, it's an extraterrestrial. Well, what's an extraterrestrial? Above the ground, off the ground, not of the ground. An extraterrestrial is an alien. So again, if you're living in the spirit realm alone, you don't have to be from another planet to be an alien. You don't have to. An extraterrestrial is above the ground, like a spirit would be, on a different plane of existence. Away over water, land, or air. She said that the land itself, it would be what she talks about it as a country, and the water is commerce. So she says there are three realms that are ruled by three different types of law. That's probably on page 2 of her book. Goes on to say, an easement giving the right to pass over a piece of private water. For those of you that have followed me over the years, I did a call probably almost 5 years ago now, where I was actually describing the name first, middle, last. What is first, middle, last? I'm not going to go into it tonight, but it is out there. I don't think it's at XYZ, but I am going to give a short first to last. Okay, you got the son, Curtis, and you have the father, Kallenbach. And in between those two positions is Richard. Richard is the baptismal name. It's also the baptismal waters or baptismal font. It's water. It represents water, baptism. So in order for me to go from Curtis to Kallenbach, I have to pass over or through the water, the font, the baptismal font called Richard. So again, it says, an easement giving right to pass over a piece of private water. Whose water is Richard? Richard is the Roman Catholic Church water. Again, it's a font, a baptismal font. And so in order for me to get across that water, I either have to abridge it or I have to go through it. But any way I do it, I have to pass over it. And I need permission to do that. So if you're living by first, middle, last, you have to go through the church property, which is the middle name. When your name is done properly, last, comma, first, middle, then you don't have to pass through or over that font. Because Kallenbach, comma, Curtis, Richard is off to the far right. I don't have, if I go from my father, Kallenbach, to Curtis, I don't have to traverse or go over the church property or the church font or the church waters, the baptismal waters of Richard. I know this is pretty tough, but if you can imagine that Richard is nothing more than baptismal water. When I go from Curtis to Kallenbach in first, middle, last, I have to pass over the water. When I go from Kallenbach, comma, to Curtis, I don't have to go over the church claim or the church property or the church water or the church or the baptismal font of Richard. So it's just one way to look at it, but it says away over water or land or through the air, which is a passage. Hotel California says to the passage. He's talking about a way. How did he get here? How did he get to that place? Through some passage. Well, he doesn't know where it came from. So anyway, middle name equals baptismal font. It's a travel by sea, a voyage over water, the carriage of passengers by water. The price paid for such carriage. In other words, years ago, and I mean many years ago, if I wanted to come to the New World, I had to pay somebody to take me here on a boat. So price paid for such carriage. Did I pay anybody? Did anybody ask me for any money? When I was traveling in the vessel inside my mother's waters, when I came to this new world, this new realm, was there a price for me to pay at that point? If somebody laid claim to my mother's mitochondrial lineage, is there an outstanding bill that needs to be paid to somebody? If somebody's claiming my mother's waters as their own through the mitochondrial DNA, which I know to be true, by the way, I call it what? It's been about almost 4 weeks now. What is the mitochondrial DNA? What is the mother's womb? I call it the chalice or the Holy Grail, which is the bloodline of Mary or the mitochondrial mother to mother to mother lineage. That to me is the Holy Grail. And it comes out of mother's womb. Why do I call it the Holy Grail? Because everything produced on planet Earth comes through mother. Again, real quick, everything that Bill Gates created, Microsoft, did Bill Gates create that? Yes. But did he come out of somebody's womb? Yes. So mother and father created Bill Gates, but Bill Gates came out of mother's womb. So if somebody claims the female, like the Roman Catholic Church does, they could, in essence, claim everything that comes out of mother's womb. The beautiful thing about what I've discovered is that they can only claim mother-only property. They cannot claim mother and father combination. So again, genuine baby has mom and dad's DNA. The chorion has mom and dad's DNA. And the only thing that has mother DNA only is the left behind maternal afterbirth. That's the only thing. Again, let's get back to passage. Price paid for such carriage. The vessel left behind, the ship I came in on, In other words, baby. When I was in mother's womb, I was surrounded by this stuff. Most of it was mine because it was chorion, but attached to my stuff was the other vessel, was the mothership herself. Well, when that maternal afterbirth came out of the womb, that was the ship I came in on. That evidences the ship I came in on. And what they're looking at is that material, that waste material, is a shipwreck. Did I pay the owner of that ship to get to this new world? Have I ever paid anybody for that trip to this new world? No, not that I know of. Is it possible somebody is saying I owe somebody for that trip? Remember, the mothership is the mothership. Dad doesn't have anything to do with the mothership. If they're saying that mothership carried me to this realm and somebody's laying claim to the female aspect solely, like the Roman Catholic Church, is it possible the Roman Catholic Church believes that everybody born through mother's womb owes them for the carriage to this new world? It's possible. It says enactment, the act of carrying a bill or resolution through a legislative or deliberative body in accordance with the prescribed forms and requisites. The emergence of a bill in the form of a law or the motion in the form of a resolution. Passage may mean when the bill has passed either or both houses of legislature, or when it was signed by president or governor. Now, let's go back to that Will Smith thing. I'm gonna go back to it and just do 30 seconds at a time.
What about you, buddy? You're from another section. Can you come in on like media or everything like you? Regular old by MC first.
I'm going to stop right there. He stops it. My skull was fractured. Okay. This is some pretty cool stuff to me. A blow to the skull. When they're talking about skull, what are they talking about? A blow to the head. He was in a Miami emergency room, a hospital. That's where he woke up. He woke up not knowing anything in a hospital, an emergency room hospital of a hospital. A blow to the skull. I'm going to go to the word head, and I'm going to see what the definition for head is. Head. This is just right online. It says the upper part of the human body, or the front or upper part of the body of an animal, typically separated from the rest of the body by a neck and containing the brain, mouth, and sense organs. 2, a thing having the appearance of a head, either in form or in relation to a whole in particular. The verb, it says, be in the leading position on, the head, in front of. 2, give a title or caption to. So the word head, to give a title or caption to. He had a blow to the head. A blow to the head. To give a title or caption to. Title. I jokingly refer to the birth process or our lives as a title bout, like a heavyweight fight. It goes on to say, when I look at some other synonyms, it says skull, because he used the word skull, a blow to the skull or something. Cranium, crown. Another word for skull or head is crown. So I'm going to go and just go over to here and see what crown says. A circular ornamental headdress worn by a monarch as a symbol of authority, usually made of or decorated with precious metals or jewels. Precious metals or jewels. Coronal. Doesn't Christ isn't he always shown wearing some or having some corona around his head? A gold ring, or it's not a halo, a corona. It says, 2, the top or the highest part of something. So the crown is the top or the highest part of something. The top or the crest or the summit, peak, pinnacle, tip, head, brow, apex. Verb, ceremonially place a crown on the head in order to invest them as a monarch. Again, people talk and they want to call themselves sovereigns. I am a sovereign, but my kingdom only extends as far as my skin. My kingdom is my physical body. And the constituents of my kingdom are the cells within. So I mean, my mind, my head is the government over my kingdom. My mind itself is the king. And it is in my head, it's the crown. If I abdicate the crown, if I lose my head or lose my mind or am decapitated, my kingdom has no king. If I give up my authority, if I relinquish my crown, if I abdicate my throne as the king over this kingdom, my physical body, and I run away from it, and some other king comes in, or some other belief system comes in, like a religion or some other governmental belief system, I have now abdicated my kingdom, and some other government steps in. The Declaration of Independence is waiting for all of us to take full responsibility for our lives. We are our own authority if we're only willing to take it. We are. And when we choose not to, when we flee our ground, our land, our kingdom, when we flee out of fear that we can't do something, another government steps in. And again, I'm going to do this. I'll probably do this every week so nobody ever forgets it. Libra Code. Article 38. Here it is. Private property, unless forfeited by crimes or by offenses of the owner, can be seized only by way of military necessity for the support or other benefit of the Army or of the United States. If the owner has not fled, the commanding officer will cause receipts to be given, which may serve the spoliated owner to obtain indemnity. So Hancock, he loses his mind through a blow to the head. He loses his crown. He loses his authority. He loses his position, his title, right off the bat, and he doesn't know who he is at that point, just like we don't. Just like we don't. He says he woke up in a Miami hospital. Woke up in a Miami hospital. What is a hospital? It says an institution for the treatment and care of sick, wounded, infirm, or aged persons, generally incorporated, and then of the class of corporations called eleemosynary or charitable. Also the building used for such purpose. So they're talking about it as a corporate position as well as the physical structure, the building itself. Hospitals may be either public or private and may be limited in their functions or services, e.g. Children's Hospital, a base hospital, one established for a definite military or naval base of operations. A field hospital is one set up near the field of operations. It is generally equipped to care for emergency cases and can be moved readily. By the way, he said he was in the emergency room. He woke up in the emergency room. So, again, it's the concept of the emergency itself. I have the legal definition of emergency doctrine in here. Under the doctrine, variously referred to as the emergency, imminent peril, or sudden peril doctrine, when one is, by the way, peril. If you look up peril in Black's Law, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do it right now. Let's just see what peril is all about. Peril is a funny word to me. Let's see. Peril. Sudden peril. Imminent peril. I mean, when was the last time you used the word peril? Really? Okay. Peril. Let's see what... Peril. The risk, hazard, this is on page 1024. The risk, hazard, or contingency insured against by a policy of insurance. In general, the cause of any loss, such as may be caused by fire, hail, etc. Perils of the lakes. perils of the sea. See, when I'm reading peril, almost everything is maritime. It's almost all water-based, meaning to do with ships and shipwrecks and salvage operations. I'm not going to read peril because I have too much to do tonight. Imminent peril, sudden peril doctrine. When one is confronted with a sudden peril requiring instinctive action, he is not, in determining his course of action, held to the exercise of the same degree of care as when he has time for reflection. And in the event that a driver of a motor vehicle suddenly meets with an emergency which naturally would overpower the judgment of a reasonably prudent and careful driver, so that momentarily he is thereby rendered incapable of deliberate and intelligent action. Look at the presumption here. It says, as a result, injures a third person. We went over third party last night. He is not negligent, provided he has used due care to avoid meeting such an emergency, and after it arises, he exercises such care as a reasonably prudent and capable driver would use under the unusual circumstances. But look what it says. In an emergency situation, by the way, situation should pop out right now. Situs, location, foreign situs trust. A situation when medical services required for an adult who, by virtue of his physical condition, is incapable of giving consent, or with respect to child whose parent or other guardian is absent and thus incapable of giving consent, the law implies consent required to administer emergency medical services. Let me go over this, why this is important. In a hospital setting, at the birth process, they're looking at the birth process as an emergency. An emergency, something is emerging, as well as being potentially harmful or dangerous. But something is truly emerging. But it says that in an emergency situation, when medical service is required for an adult who, by virtue of his physical condition, by the way, his and her are interchangeable, her physical condition is incapable of giving consent, or with respect to a child whose parent or other guardian is absent and thus incapable of giving consent, the law implies consent. If you are doing anything whatsoever through that birth certificated person, that birth certificated person is always in an emergency situation, always. Why? Because they're defective. They're already, that thing never comes out of an emergency situation. You do. 57 years ago? 56 years ago, I left behind that situation. But you know what? On paper, unless you Minnesota 220 yourself, you're in that situation forever. You're always in an emergency situation. Always, for your entire life. So now, thinking of that, is it possible to not consent to what's going on with that character? No, it's not possible. Consent is implied. Consent is implied. With that character, with that birth certificated person, consent is implied. You don't get to withdraw consent. You don't get to say, I don't consent. With that birth certificated person, consent is implied because it's always in an emergency state. It never moves beyond it. Let's keep going here. He said he was in an emergency room at the hospital. So I pulled out the word room, or what the closest I could get to in Black's Law, and it said a roomer, R-O-O-M-E-R. And it says a lodger, one who rents a room or rooms. Lodger, an occupant who has mere use without actual or exclusive possession. I hope everybody remembers what the word mere, M-E-R-E, means. I'm going to go to it in blacks. M-E-R-E, mir. Mother. Mother, daughter. In ventre samir, in its mother's womb. Mir means mother. Now let's reread that. It says an occupant who has a mother use or mere use without actual or exclusive possession. In other words, permission from mother to use something, to occupy something, to possess something. Goes on to say, person who rents a furnished room or rooms, lodger has been defined as a tenant of part of another's house. Part of another's house. One who for a time being has his home at his lodging place. One who has leave to inhabit another man's house. Hey, listen, again, my dad always said this. You live under my roof, you go by my rules. If you think it's any different in another man's house, if you're living under the roof of somebody else, some other man, it's their rules. You can bitch and moan all you want, but under that roof, it's his rules. He goes on to say, one who inhabits portion of a house of which another has general possession. A house. If my physical body is the house of the holy, if my physical body is the house of the holy, it's where my spirit lives. But there's another piece of that house out there somewhere. And somebody else has the title to that house, Curtis Richard Kallenbach, the afterbirth, the Corion. It says, one who inhabits portion of a house of which another has general possession. If somebody has the deed called Curtis Richard Kallenbach in their possession, and that deed leads that over to the Corion, which is my DNA, they have the deed to the house I'm living in, even though it's my body. I'm a lodger in my own body. One who inhabits portion of a house of which another has general possession and custody. Custody. If somebody has possession of the deed and that deed is tied to your DNA, you are already in custody. One who lives at board or in a hired room or who has a bed in another's house. One who lives in a hired room or rooms in a house of another. One who occupies hired apartments in another's house. The term is also defined as a person who lives and sleeps in a place. A person whose occupancy is part of a house and subordinate to and in some degree under the control of a landlord or his representative. It says the term is used to indicate a personal relationship of someone lodging somewhere with somebody. I love that line. That's why I bolded it. Look at this. The term is used to indicate a personal relationship with someone lodging somewhere with somebody. I love that. Lodging place, a place of rest for a night or a residence for a time, a temporary habitation. Lodgings, habitation in another's house, apartments in another's house. By the way, when you get a mortgage, are you just renting a space basically to live? Yes, you are. It says a house furnished or unfurnished, occupied for habitation, the occupier being termed a lodger. You know what's really funny is this is kind of off the beaten path, but what was that? Let me do this real quick. Away in the manger. Away in the manger. No crib for a bed. Let me see something. Away. It just popped into my head. I was talking to somebody earlier. Away in the manger lyrics. Let me see what this says here. Away in the manger, no crib for a bed, the little Lord Jesus laid down his sweet head. The stars in the sky looked down where he lay, the little Lord Jesus asleep in the hay, on the hay. Away in the manger was where the Jesus supposedly was put to sleep. What is a manger? I'm going to look it up. I'm not even going to, I know what it is, but I'm going to look it up real quick. A manger, what is it? M-A-N-G-E-R defined. A long open box or trough for horses or cattle to eat from. A manger is a feed, a feed tray. You know what they used to put in a manger? Afterbirth, to feed the animals. That's what the Christ is. It's freaking afterbirth. Look at how stupid we are. I'm embarrassed that we can be so easily misled. Away in the manger, a long open box or trough for horses or cattle to eat from. Baby Lord Jesus put down in a manger because he's afterbirth. That is the sacrificial lamb. It's the afterbirth material. Christ is the afterbirth. By the way, Christa is inside the mitochondria. It's inside the mitochondria, the Christa. So you have the mitochondrial DNA of the mother, and inside the mitochondria itself is the Christa. And that's where all the energy comes from. The mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. It's where all energy comes from in our bodies. They're using our energy. We're nothing more than a source of energy to get things done on planet Earth. It's not really that far off when you look at the movie like The Matrix, where it shows all those pods with those people or those babies or whatever are in there. It's just a source of energy. It's in the mitochondria. And the mitochondrial DNA of the mother is what the Roman Catholic Church is laying claim to. Man, I got off track on that one. Away in the manger. But that's how sick this stuff is. It really is magic, and we're falling for it. It's the year 2017 or 57, 76 or 77. I don't know, Mundi. I don't know. You know what? It doesn't matter what the calendar says. It's now. Everything is arbitrary. It doesn't matter what it says. Anyway, so let's get back to this lodger. Lodge, Webster's 1828 said, to set, lay, or deposit for keeping or preservation for a longer or shorter time. I'm going to go back to the movie and see where he goes for the next 30 seconds or whatever.
When I woke up,
Oh, you know what's funny is, so he gets hit over the head, and he's bleeding all over the place, but it's his head that is bleeding. Do you realize that when mom takes baby home, or whatever, the hospital, the afterbirth scene looks like a crime scene. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's a bloody mess. Come on, people. It just is what it is. And they say, I mean, in this movie it says, he thought he tried to stop a mugging. Well, you can do your own research on the word mugging, the idea of a photograph, all that stuff. But that's what I'm getting at, is the idea that he was trying to stop a mugging or a crime was happening where he got hit on the head. I jokingly say that I think the afterbirth, what they should do after it hits the floor, I'm joking about hitting the floor, but after it shows up on the floor, they should draw a chalk line around it, like a murder scene. Because that's how it's being treated in the courts. Like somebody killed somebody. Like somebody stole somebody's identification or life after they beat them to death. That's how it's being treated in the courts. It's almost like a crime was committed in the hospital or on public grounds. And then he goes on to say, I changed. I don't remember anything. I changed. It says an alteration, change, noun, an alteration, a modification or addition. We went over addition last night. Substitution of one thing for another. Substitution of one thing for another. I changed. I call it an initiation, actually, but I changed. It says exchange of money against money of a different denomination. Does anybody know what denomination is? To denominate. What is that? What is to nominate? It's to name. To denominate would be to unname. It's also something entirely different. It has to do with ecclesia. What is a denomination? It says exchange of money against money of a different denomination. In 1933, when they created that new nation through FDR's statement, his inaugural address, it is my contention that the Roman Catholic Church basically took over the gold of the United States and then returned it through a denomination, a new type of money, which is a certificate of indulgence, a form of payment. What is denomination here? Let me see what it says here. Denominate. A denomination, the act of naming, a society of individuals known by the same name, usually a religious society. Denominational, of or pertaining to a denomination, a sectarian, a sect, a cult. A denominational institution controlled or operated by a religious sect or organization and hence forbidden to receive governmental aid because of constitutional separation of church and state. If all of a sudden you found yourself and initiate into a cult, a sect, a denomination, from the point, I'm talking about right at the very beginning. If you were given some identification that allowed you to now participate in this other sect, and you were ultimately exiled from the United States of America right then and there, I actually think that that's what's happening here. I think that the birth certificate puts you under a new government if you claim it as you, which we're not doing. See, I hope everybody understands I'm not claiming the birth certificate. That would be a mistake. I'm claiming the birth certificate position through something else, through an assumed name. Anyway, let's keep going on this. Change versus alter. To cause to pass from one place to another. Exchange, make different in some particular. Put one thing in place of another. That's everything that's happening in our lives. We have been replaced. Genuine baby goes home without any identification whatsoever. And the left behind material gets his life. The left behind material gets the name that we thought was ours. Let's keep going on this. He says, the doctors wanted to know his story. His story. That's what the title's for. Remember that this is a book. It's the story of your life. He doesn't remember it because he can't claim it. See, the thing is he can't remember it. There's no memory of his life. Just like us. If we can't go all the way back to that first moment and claim our lives from that point, all the way up until today, we don't own our lives. If we don't have a memory, which we actually don't, we can't remember being born, so the only thing we can do is use the record with the three witnesses that were there that proves we were there. And we need to claim that moment through that record. If we don't, we have no memory of it. And without a memory, we can't remember. To remember is reattaching or laying claim to the chorion, which is back there in that time frame. So we remember, reattach to chorion, and when we do that, we actually prove life. Now we're alive. And when a man proves life, he's revested with his title, which is Curtis Richard Kallenbach in my case. And then because everything out there in the world is tied to Curtis Richard Kallenbach, whatever that name is on, I get. Including diplomas, things like that, certificates. They're all mine now. They're all mine. Almost done here. He says, I don't know who I am.
You don't remember any.
Here's what's interesting. He says in his pocket, he has 2 tickets to a movie called Frankenstein. So that's what he had, some gum and 2 tickets to a movie. Well, 2 tickets are to a show. In other words, the show that we're all in right now, that's the show. But the movie is Frankenstein. Why would they use that? Why is that important? Because Frankenstein is what? Frankenstein is the public pool. Frankenstein is the public pool. I mean, he's a composite of different people. He's stitched together to create a singular person, a John Doe, so to speak. That's the public pool. The public pool is Frankenstein. Actually, I shouldn't say it that way because when I say it like that, everybody's picturing the monster itself, but what is the name of the monster? Well, the monster doesn't have a name. Or unless you consider that the doctor that created Frankenstein is the monster, and then Frankenstein, again, is the monster. But really, the monster himself, he doesn't have a name. And neither do we. Collectively, does the afterbirth have a name, actually? No. It's assumed ours. The afterbirth has assumed our name, or our property, or our title. What's really funny is the name of the movie itself. John Hancock is where he got his name. He says, yeah, when I woke up, the nurse said, to sign out, I had to put my John Hancock on the paper. So he did. He wrote John Hancock. Well, what's funny about that is, who is John Hancock? Well, I went to Wikipedia and just looked it up, and he says John Hancock was an American merchant, statesman, and prominent patriot of the American Revolution. He served as president of the Second Continental Congress and was the first and third governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Here it is. He is remembered for his large and stylish signature on the United States Declaration of Independence. So much so that the term John Hancock has become, in the United States, a synonym for a signature. The entire system is financed by signatures. It's financed by signatures. In other words, by your John Hancock, by my John Hancock. It doesn't matter. I mean, that's what we do here. That's the signature is your promise to pay. And that promise to pay is the issue of national security. It is the thing that secures all payments. It's your promise to pay, what they call full faith and credit. It's your John Hancock, which is why this movie's called that. Finally, like I said, this is pretty fun stuff. You can go through it yourself. But he says that when he goes, well, how come I never heard about this? Why didn't I know that this occurred? He goes, well, it happened 80 years ago. And he goes, well, I don't age. Well, we don't age. The birth certificated person's stuck back there in that first year. It's frozen in time. Until we go back and reclaim it and pull all my 56 years back into it, right now it's stuck back there in year 1. It doesn't age, just like Hancock doesn't age. He quit aging from that moment, way back then, 80 years ago. What is 80 years, by the way? 80 years is 4 generations. When did this movie come out? probably around 2015, 80 years from 2015, or maybe, in fact, I'm going to look at it because I want to be exact here. I'm going to look up when Hancock came out. Hancock, the movie. Let's see what, this is important. It says in 2008. 80 years from 2008 is what? 1928? I mean, within 5 years of the birth certificate. Within 5 years, so 80 years. He says, 8 years ago this happened. There's a lot of movies like that, where they're saying, 80 years from the time that this movie was made is almost exactly the same time that the birth certificates came out, were issued. Where everything now is based upon a John Hancock, a signature, a promise to pay. And then finally, in the last part, this is what, it's so sad. But in the very end of the scene, he says, I'm going to go to the end here. He says, what kind of a bastard must I have been that nobody was there to claim me? Just like the afterbirth material. The afterbirth is a bastard child. It's a bastard. It doesn't have a parent, at least the maternal side. But it doesn't have a parent to claim it. So it's left behind. It is abandoned. And he's saying, what kind of a bastard must I have been to have nobody come there to claim me? Nobody to come there and claim me. See, what we don't realize is that unless you get deep enough into this, Hancock, even though he's physical when you look at him, what he really is he's an insurance policy. He's the thing that saves everything, that pays for everything. He's a superhero. He's the insurance policy itself. He is the insurance policy. And that's what I'm getting at, is that the bastard side of this thing, he says, nobody claimed me. What is a bastard? An illegitimate child, a child born before the lawful marriage of his parents, born out of lawful wedlock, a child born after marriage but under circumstances that render it impossible that the husband of his mother can be his father. To bastardize, to declare one a bastard, as a court does. To give evidence to prove one a bastard. A mother married cannot bastardize her child. Bastard is, it says a bastard can have no heir unless it be one lawfully begotten of his own body. Listen, a bastard can have no heir unless it be one lawfully begotten of his own body. It says a bastard is nobody's son. Or they call a bastard the son of the people. Nobody. Again, back to etymology online, what is nobody? Nobody is no person, noon. In other words, person. Here we go. And I'm going to finish with this, because all of this, when you know what you're looking at, it's unbelievable. There are three elements that have to all be working together in order for you to exist. And the scary part for me is that there's a lot of people out there saying, I am, I don't have a name, I don't want a name, I am. I am is the spirit, is the life force inside. It absolutely is important, because without it there's no life. I am is the Christ itself. Remember, Christa is in the mitochondria. It is the energy source. It's the light, by the way. The photon, it's the light inside the mitochondria. It is the light of your life. I am is the light. What's funny, or you think of it as, I call it the spark in the heart, or the thing that just gives life. By the way, how did Frankenstein come alive? You bet, yeah, a lightning bolt. onto a couple of electrodes, and it went into that mass of humanity, and it lit them up and got them alive. Just a side note. But anyway, I am. That's the spirit. But then you need a physical body. So the spirit needs a body to be housed in. So the I am needs a physical body. So when people are just claiming to be I am, they're claiming to not have a physical side to themselves, which is asinine. I am, Kurt. God, I am. Well, you need a physical body. And the physical body, by the way, has a name. Names are for things, by the way. So my physical body has a name, and it happens to be Curtis or Curtis Richard to the family Kallenbach. So my body, my physical existence has a name. Do I have a name? Do I am have a name? No. The spirit has no name. The body has a name. The body has a person. The body has a person. And without a person, the body has no name. And without that person, you have no body. If you don't claim the person, the title to the body, you're not claiming the body. You are nobody. I am don't make it. I am doesn't get anywhere. Again, if I just claim to be I am, can I experience a beer? No. Why? Because my physical body is what gives me experiences in this realm, in this physical realm. I can't even taste a beer if I claim to be I am. Because the taste buds are on the tongue, inside the mouth, inside the body. And without the body, I can't experience beer. Or I am can't experience beer. And if I don't have a name, if I don't claim a name, I can't claim the body. There are three elements that you absolutely have to do to be whole and to be here now and to have property. You have to have a body, you have to have a name on that body, and you have to have life in that body. Three elements. And that would be the Father, Son, Holy Ghost if you want to go that route. Or mind, body, spirit if you want to go that route. But you have to have a person because the person is the name. And the name is attached to the body. And the body is a place where the spirit resides. You need all three. Why do you need a name? Because without it you can't make a claim. I can't claim my own son without a name. I can't go pick him up at school without a name. I can't go get him out of trouble without a name. If I don't have a name, I can't make a claim. We are so far away at this point from reality. We're so afraid because there's so many morons out there starting all kinds of junk. I'm not sure if they're just plain stupid or they're getting paid to do this. You need all three. Without a name, you can make no claim. You can't even claim your body without a name. So you don't want a name, you don't get a body. If you don't own a body, can you be imprisoned? Can somebody hold something behind the bars in a cell? If you're not claiming the body, then they're not imprisoning you, are they? You need a name to make a claim. If you don't own it, somebody's going to make a claim, and they can get you to do anything they want because you're too stupid to make a claim upon your life. Not you guys, but all those morons out there that are running away from the name. All right, I'm going to get into, I would advise you guys to watch this movie, by the way, and really look at what they're doing. The three characters that are sitting at this table, they represent genuine baby, chorion, and maternal afterbirth. The genuine baby is actually the husband. That's the man. Hancock is the chorion. And Charlize Theron is the maternal afterbirth. All three positions are covered. Anyway, I'm going to start on protection of industrial property here. This is going to go into some really important stuff really fast. I think we're on Article 4. Yeah, I finished with right of priority last night. So Article 4, where it says patents applied for in the various contracting countries by nationals of the Union shall be independent of the patents obtained for the same invention in other countries, whether such countries be or be not parties to the Union. This stipulation must receive a strict interpretation. In particular, it shall be understood to mean that patents applied for during the period of priority are independent, both as regards the grounds for refusal and for revocation, and also as regards their normal duration. This stipulation shall apply to all patents already existing at the time when it shall come into effect. The same stipulation shall apply in the case of the accession of new countries to patents in existence, either on one side or the other at the time of accession. Here's what's interesting about this industrial property. When you lay claim to it, and by the way, you can't lay claim to your industrial property without a name. I'm just going to tell you that up front. I am is not going to cut it. But you can't lay claim to it. The industrial property, this is all around the world. When you finally lay claim to your stuff, you are protected everywhere in the world, in the countries that are party to this. Not only that, I'm going to go online right now, and I'm going to look up in a business dictionary the definition of common market, where your industrial property is. Common market, group formed by countries within a geographical area to promote duty-free trade and free movement of labor and capital among its members. The European Community as a legal entity within the framework of the European Union is best known. Example, common markets impose common external tariffs on imports from non-member countries. So if you're a member, if you have a membership in that common market, you get to move around duty-free. No obligations. Your membership allows you to travel anywhere. And it goes on to say, and free movement of labor and capital, which is your industrial property. Again, if I go back to industry, it says capital and labor and capital. Let's do it again real quick, because the next paragraph is going to go deep real fast. I might as well finish up with this. Industry. Here it is. Industry, any department or branch of art, occupation, or business conducted as a means of livelihood or for profit, especially one which employs much labor and capital and is distinct branch of trade. Industry is labor and capital, and it says here in the common market, free movement of labor and capital. Free movement. Duty-free trade. Duty-free. Look at this. What does it say? When I click on the hyperlink of duty-free, it says merchandise on which import duty is not charged. Do you accept the charges? You're not ever charged. In the United States, when you have a membership, you're not ever going to be charged because you're not importing anything. Everything is already in there. It's the common market is the economic system within the United States of America. It's a trade organization called the United States. And when you have a membership, all the stuff stays in there. You're not importing anything in the United States, therefore you have no duty. Nothing, you're not bringing anything in. There are no charges to accept. Do you accept the charges? There are no charges. It says merchandise on which import duty is not charged because it is sold only to departing passengers in an airport or port's departure lounge. Department, departing, departure. Dearly departed, which are bonded areas. So it says an airport or port's departure lounge, which are bonded areas. By the way, that is the courthouse. It says non-residents can buy it outside of bonded areas on presentation of valid travel documents, such as a passport and travel ticket, but can collect the purchased item only at the departing point. When you have the proper membership, you don't need anything but a passport to travel around the world or within the United States. You don't need anything but a passport. When you have a membership in good standing, which is the assumed name, which is guaranteed or bonded to the maternal afterbirth, when you have all that in place, the only thing you need to travel around with is a passport card on the land and a passport overseas. You don't need any other ID. It's all commercial, people. The man is not in commerce. He has a ship in commerce. The man is not the ship. He has a ship. Okay, this is one of my favorite, Article 5. It says the introduction by the patentee into the country where the patent has been granted of objects manufactured in any of the countries of the Union shall not entail forfeiture. Nevertheless, each of the contracting countries shall have the right to take the necessary legislative measures to prevent the abuses which might result from the exercise of the exclusive rights conferred by the patent. For example, failure to use. I'm going to break this sentence down because it's one of the most important sentences I'll ever talk about. And I run across this occasionally. I'm going to probably have to dig up a document here. Hang on a second. Let me read that again because this is one of the key. This is when I discovered this, I found the reason for a driver's license, believe it or not. It says, the introduction by the patentee into the country where the patent has been granted of objects manufactured in any of the countries of the Union shall not entail forfeiture. It shall not entail forfeiture. And in other words, what is it that you manufacture? It doesn't matter. It's your capital and labor. It's everything that you produce. You produce. It doesn't matter whether it's intellectual production or physical production. In fact, I'm going to go to the word product real quick. Product. Because it's your production. It's what you produce. Product. With reference to property, term refers to proceeds, yield, income, receipts, return. goods produced or manufactured either by natural means, by hand, or with tools, machinery, chemicals, or the like. Product means something produced by physical labor or intellectual effort, or something produced naturally or as a result of natural process by generation or growth, which is children, by the way. Production, page 1089, process or act of producing, that which is produced or made, i.e. goods, fruit of labor, as the productions of the earth comprehending all vegetables and fruits. The productions of intellect or genius, as poems and prose compositions, in other words, words. The productions of art and manufactures of any kind. Any kind, of course, kind means child as well. Let's go to this Article 5 again. It says, nevertheless, each of the contracting countries shall have the right to take the necessary legislative measures to prevent the abuses which might result from the exercise of the exclusive rights conferred by the patent. For example, failure to use. In other words, they're giving an example of what an abuse is. And an abuse is failure to use. They're calling that an abuse. When I discovered this, it goes on to say, I'm going to read this right now, it says, these measures will only provide for the revocation of the patent if the granting of compulsory licenses shall not suffice to prevent such abuses. The granting of compulsory licenses. Okay, now this is going to take a little while to actually explain, but a compulsory license is a driver's license. They're saying that the only reason a driver's license exists is because of the abuse. And the abuse is a failure to use. What is it that you're not using that they now require you to have a driver's license? What are you not using? You're not using your commercial vessel. You haven't registered it to you. And because it's not registered to you, there's no evidence of use. Let me do this real. I got to go real slow on this. Curtis Richard Kallenbach, okay, all caps, was issued to me. I'm looking at it right now. Okay, so baby, genuine baby comes out of mom. Then the afterbirth comes out of mom, and there's two elements to it, the chorion and the maternal. And then they create a title, Curtis Richard Kallenbach, upper and lowercase. And then they create, through registration process, a commercial vessel that has a birth inside the commercial trade organization known as the United States. And that commercial vessel, in my case, is called Curtis Richard Kallenbach, all caps. And they actually, the certification of the birth registration came in the mail to my parents on or around May 5th, 1965. I was born Gregorian September 19th, 1960 at 3:50 a.m. The date of filing was October 6, 1960, so about, 15 days, 16 days later. But this certification of birth registration for the all caps, Curtis Richard Kallenbach, which is a commercial member ship. It's a ship. It's my boat. It's my toy boat. And because it's only good for 5 years, the registration is only good for 5 years, that because I didn't use it in commerce at 5 years old, it became unused or abused. It became a child abuse case. because this is a child of the state. Curtis Richard Kalamak is a ship of state. It is a membership within a trade organization. But I never used it in the first 5 years, so the registration lapsed. It became a derelict vessel. And the next 2 years, because I didn't use it, I was presumed missing myself, because who wouldn't use this vessel? And then after 7 years, I'm presumed dead. So the vessel goes out into the public domain, and it's a derelict vessel. It's an unused, i.e. abused child. This is your toy boat. This is the vessel you're supposed to be using in commerce. It is bonded to the mothership itself. The maternal afterbirth is on deposit. It is actually the thing that pays for this vessel. It is the very sacrificial lamb that indemnifies this ship. You can use this ship all day long and never, ever be liable for it. It flies the flag of the United States of America. If you register this ship to you, you will never need a driver's license. A driver's license is, and back to Article 5, they're only needed for those that fail to use the ship of state, their membership. If they allow that ship to go derelict, you're going to be forced to use that name through a license. Why? Because all of this stuff that you're not using goes into a trust at this point. You're missing presumed dead now. All of the property goes into a trust. And the fiduciaries or the trustees of that trust require, if you want to use that name now, since it's not registered to you, you need to get a license to use it, because that's what the fiduciaries or trustees require. If the ship was actually registered to you, you wouldn't need a driver's license. But it's not registered to you. In fact, you haven't even proved life. You're asking permission to use the title that your mother created, your mother and father created. You're asking permission from a fiduciary who's managing that name through the bar association. You need a license to use your own property because you're not alive. You haven't proved life. Again, let me go over this Article 5. It says, each of the contracting countries shall have the right to take the necessary legislative measures to prevent the abuses which might result from the exercise of the exclusive rights conferred by the patent. The patent is the name. When they do a birth announcement and publish the name in the paper, it's a common law copyright. That name now is copyrighted, and it's protected by the United States if you would only lay claim to it. But it says to prevent the abuse. What is abuse? It goes on to explain what abuse is. It says, which might result from the exercise of exclusive rights conferred by the patent. For example, failure to use. Failure to use is the abuse. And so because you're not using your name in commerce, because you're not participating in the economic side of the equation, they're going to force you, which is what a license is. It says to compel. It's compulsory to compel. They're going to force you to use your own name since you don't want to do that. It says these measures will only provide for the revocation of the patent if the granting of compulsory licenses shall not suffice to prevent non-use, i.e. abuse. Granting compulsory license, what is to compel? To be compelled to do something. That's what a driver's license is, by the way. It's to compel you to do something that you're not willing to do on your own. Compel. It says to urge forcefully under extreme pressure. The word compel is used in constitutional right to be free from being compelled. In a criminal case, to be a witness against oneself means to be subjected to some coercion. Fear, terror, inducement, trickery, or threat, either physically or psychologically, blatantly or subtly. The hallmark of compulsion is the presence of some operative force producing an involuntary response. Nobody would ever choose to use a driver's license if they knew they could be tased because they have it. You realize I could not have been tased if I did not have a driver's license? What is a license? What is a driver's license? Let's look up driver's license real quick to be very clear. Driver, a person actually doing driving, whether employed by owner to drive or driving his own vehicle. Driver's license, the certificate or license issued by a state which authorizes a person to operate a motor vehicle. Generally, a written and driving examination is required, blah, blah, blah. Driving, here it is. To urge forward, under guidance, compel to go in a particular direction, urge onward, and direct the course of. To drive is to compel. The granting of compulsory licenses. Licenses are to compel, to urge you in a direction. Why? Because the whole system, everything is built upon the economy. In fact, the birth certificate itself is what? I said it last night. It's an issue of national security. Your willful participation in the economy is all they're asking. And if you're not going to willfully participate and actually manage your own ship of state, which is the registered vessel, if you're not going to do that, they're going to compel you to do it. There is actually, I don't have it here, but I have it on pCloud. There is, let me go to pCloud real quick, a document at pCloud, non-voluntary licensing. So we can find that real quick. Because the non-voluntary licensing, let me see something here. The non-voluntary licensing is when you merge all these two positions that I'm talking about with the between the Minnesota Rule 220 and the assumed name. When you merge all these positions together, it's an extinguishment. There's only one. There's only one of you at that point. But the non-voluntary license, I'm looking for the document right now, so just hang in there. Sorry, my head's starting to get stuffy again, so hang on. Okay, non-voluntary license. That's the one that describes. There it is. I think that's the one right there. By the way, it's not. You're not going to find it under non-voluntary licensing. It is actually under CS_Reichman. Again, I want you to find this, but it's under CS_Reichman. That's RICHMAN _Hassan. But just look up CS_R. And a document's going to come up called Non-Voluntary Licensing of Patented Inventions. The invention itself is the ship of state. It's your toy boat. It's your toy boat to use in commerce. It's not dangerous, by the way. In fact, it's already secured by the maternal afterbirth, the real mothership. It really is tied to that. In fact, Curtis Richard Kallenbach is the title to the mothership. It's the title to the maternal afterbirth. It's the title to the maternal afterbirth. all caps Curtis Richard Kallenbach, is the name of the security, of the Lamb of God, the pure, unadulterated maternal afterbirth. Curtis Richard Kallenbach is the name of that vessel, and I get to use that my entire life, as long as it's registered to me. And now commerce is not dangerous. You're not going to get called into the courtroom because it's actually registered to you. And when you have it registered to you, you don't have to have a driver's license because they don't need to compel you to participate in commerce. And you're flying the United States of America flag, which means you're protected. I'm going to look, I thought I highlighted this. I'm going to read something out of here real quick, and I'm going to tell you what page it's on. I think it's on like page 23, but I'm going to find it for you real quick. Let's see, where is it? 20. Because this is such an amazing quote. Page is that? 21. Oh, here it is. I found it. On the document, if you're online, it'll probably show up as page 31. But if you look at the document, if you printed it off, which is what I did at the other house, it's actually page 23. I mean, the number on the page is actually page 23. But this is such an amazing thing. It says, and this is the second paragraph down on the left side, it says, policymakers should bear in mind that the issuance of a non-voluntary license cannot normally impede a patent holder from entering the market in competition with the licensee, a patent holder. In other words, you. Remember that this is your property. You are the patent holder. You just never laid claim to it. So it says, a patent holder from entering the market in competition with the licensee, so long as the former complies with local competition law. He may possess the economic and technical power to make life difficult for the latter. The patentee's rights to enter or remain in the market follow from Article 31D of the TRIPS Agreement, which ensures that non-voluntary licenses shall be non-exclusive. Okay, but here it is. Moreover, so long as domestic competition laws do not impede it, and this is it, the foreign patent holder can purchase or merge with his local competitor, in which case all strategy conflicts will soon vanish. When you, the owner, merge with you, the local competitor, you become one. And now there is no split personality, so to speak. And there is no conflict. When you're the holder and owner and operator, when you're in all positions, there are no conflicts. Remember that you're only in court because of a conflict and somebody else making a claim. Why would you make a claim against yourself? That's the point. Right now, because of this ridiculous trust position, because these ridiculous multiple or divisions of your own property, you're ending up in court over your own property. Again, the word abuse. Abuse is non-use. If you do not use your ship of state, if you do not register it back to you, that ship of state, that membership, and what is it a membership to? I spoke of it earlier. The common market. The common market. And again, when you have that membership, this is all part of the same stuff, but the membership, it says, again, the common market, group formed by countries within a geographical area to promote duty-free trade. What is duty-free? Merchandise on which import duty is not charged. You realize that all the charges that the court's trying to force you to accept, are you importing? You're importing something into the United States. But if your vessel is already a United States of America vessel, you're not going to be charged. Also, if you have a registered vessel, you're not going to need a compulsory license. You're not going to be forced to have a driver's license. This thing is like win-win, win-win, win-win. You don't have to be afraid of the cops anymore because they're actually protecting your side of the story. Now that you know the idea with the compulsory license is, again, to prevent the abuse, to prevent the non-use. And remember that the child of the state is the vessel itself. So abuse, they're calling it child abuse. Everybody thinks child abuse is about beating their biological children. It's not. It's about a dereliction of duty over the ship of state. Again, they created Curtis Richard Kallenbach on October 6, 1960. They notified my parents on May 5, 1965, that through a certification of birth registration, that this vessel existed. It was the first time Curtis Richard Kallenbach, all caps, was ever known by my parents. And, of course, they didn't know what this little card was that came in the mail that was delivered by the stork. But because nobody knew what it was, we allowed it to go derelict. We allowed it to become a derelict vessel. What is derelict? Again, we can't know this stuff enough. Derelict. Forsaken. Hell, that almost sounds biblical. Abandoned. Deserted. Cast away. Cast Away was the name of that movie, by the way, that Tom Hanks was in when he was stuck on the island. When his airplane went down. The movie was called Cast Away. It's all around us, people. Personal property abandoned or thrown away by the owner in such a manner as to indicate that he intends to make no further claim thereto. Dereliction or renunciation of property at sea as well as on land requires both the intention to abandon and external action. What does deserted mean? Desertion. Desert. To leave or quit with an intention to cause a permanent separation. To forsake utterly, to abandon, it is essentially willful in nature. Desertion. The act by which a person abandons and forsakes without justification or unauthorized a station or condition or public, social, or family life, renouncing its responsibilities and evading its duties. Who's the only one responsible for your physical body? Criminal desertion is a husband or wife's abandonment or willful failure without just cause to provide for the care, protection, or support of a spouse who is in ill health or necessitous circumstances. Desertion. Abandon. What's abandoned? We're just going to go over this again because I can't imagine. See, this is what's happening. We're abandoning everything, all of our property. Abandonment. I'm only going to read a couple here again. To desert, surrender, forsake, to cede. C-E-D-E. How many people have heard about the seed company? C-E-D-E. What does seed mean? C-E-D-E. It's funny, that's like a Wall Street company, or that's where birth certificates end up. Let's see what C-E-D-E means real quick. To yield up, to assign, to grant, to surrender, to withdraw, usually used to designate a transfer of territory from one government to another. A transfer of territory. Territory. From one government to another. Your physical body is the territory. It's like when I jokingly said extraterrestrial. Your physical body is territory. It says generally used to designate the transfer of territory from one government to another. If I leave behind the Corion, if I abandon or forsake the Corion, it's a territory. It's actually part of my body. It's part of my DNA. I'm allowing another government to rule over it. Then by extension, once they grab that land, they can actually make a claim upon my physical body, because that is my physical body. Again, to surrender, forsake, to cede, to relinquish or give up with the intent to never again resuming one's right or interest, to give up or to cease to use, to give up absolutely, to forsake entirely, to renounce utterly, to relinquish all connection or concern in, to desert. I'm just saying, the reason you have a driver's license is that they need to compel you to take care of yourself. That they're forcing you to use a name because you haven't claimed one. The moment you claim it is the moment everything stops. All the nasty shit in our lives ends. I'm going to keep reading. It says the measures will only provide for the revocation. This is out of Article 5 still, just the third sentence. Will provide for the revocation of the patent if the granting of compulsory licenses shall not suffice. So in other words, they will not take your name from you unless the driver's license doesn't work. Of course, it works for everybody, but I'm just saying that's the last resort is to revocate the patent itself. So they're forcing you to use the property within the patent, which is your name. They're forcing you to use it because that's economics. But you don't have to be forced to use it. You can actually claim it. And once you claim it, you don't need to be compelled. You don't need to be driven. It goes on to say, in all cases, the patent will not be subject to such measures before the expiration of at least 3 years from the date of its grant. And if the patentee produces just excuses, the protection of designs and industrial models cannot be liable to cancellation by reason of the introduction of objects corresponding to those protected. Articles shall not be required to bear any indication of registration for recognition of this right. Now look at that. Articles shall not be required to bear any indication of registration. Do you realize that the cops couldn't pull you over if they didn't have plausible deniability? See, they have plausible deniability because it says here, are not required to bear any indication of registration. That means they can pull everybody over, presuming nobody's registered. Because it says you don't need to indicate registration. It says, if in a country the use of a registered trademark is compulsory, the registration cannot be canceled until after a reasonable period, and only then if those interested cannot justify the causes of their inaction. Of course, the only inaction would be death. But it says, if in a country the use of a registered trademark is compulsory. I don't know any way around it. I mean, if you don't have a name, you can't do anything. And the name that they have in their possession is your father's name. If it's not registered to you, you can't use it without a license. Article 5, to continue, it says, a period of grace of at least 3 months will be granted for the payment of taxes prescribed for the maintenance of industrial property rights. Maintenance. In other words, if there's somebody that has to maintain it other than yourself, a management company. I said that a maintenance, it could easily be, the IRS could easily fall under the concept of maintenance of industrial property rights, together with a surcharge of the internal legislation of a country so provides. For patents of invention, the contracting countries undertake, moreover, either to prolong the extended period to 6 months at least, or to provide for the restoration of a patent which is lapsed owing to the non-payment of fees. It being understood that these provisions are subject to the conditions prescribed by internal legislation. All you have to do is pay the fee to get your name back, to have the right, the membership itself. Remember, I can't go into my own health club. I can't go into my health club without the fee, without paying a fee. And once I do pay the fee, I get a little key card, a key fob. And all I have to do is put that up against the little eye, and it opens the door for me. If I don't have a membership, I can't get in there. If I don't have a membership, I can't get in the United States of America. I can't get in there. I can't do business in there. I need permission at that point. That's what a license is for. I hate asking permission for things, especially when it's my own stuff. The thought of asking permission to use my own stuff is horrifying to me. Anyway, Article 5 continued. It says, in each of the contracting countries, the following shall not be considered as infringing the rights of the patentee. 1, the use on board ships of other countries of the Union of anything, the subject matter of his patent, in the body of the ship, in the machinery, tackle, apparatus, and other accessories, when such ships enter temporarily or accidentally the waters of the country, provided that such thing is employed there exclusively for the needs of the vessel. Provided that such thing is employed there exclusively for the needs of the vessel. I'm telling you, membership definitely has its privileges. Remember that when you have a membership, it's global. It's global. And all you need is the proper passport at that point to identify your true position in the United States of America, to be protected by that place. 2, the use of anything, the subject matter of the patent, in the construction or functioning of the engines of locomotion for air or land or other countries of the Union. For air or land. What is an engine of locomotion? What is locomotion? Locomotion definition. The movement or ability to move from one place to another. The engines of locomotion. The ability to move from one place to another. Let me ask you something. If I have a vessel, but I don't have an engine of locomotion, I don't have the ability of movement, that would be like a dead body. A body without the spirit, a body without the I am, is a body devoid of locomotion. Again, if you're not in the position, if you're not claiming all of the positions at one time, in the here and now, the chorion is in a fixed position. It cannot move. It can't move. It only moves through me. I mean, in the courtroom, they're talking about motion. I have to move something. I have to move the court. I have to do this or that. But the chorion doesn't have the ability to move without me. They need my energy because the chorion doesn't have any. It truly is a decedent. So they have a defective position until I go in there. So they have a defective claim until I go in there. The moment the living man, the living body shows up and connects with their claim, whoa, excuse me, I perfect their claim. And now I give it locomotion, I give it life, I give it energy. Goes on to say, of the other countries of the Union or accessories of these engines when they enter the country temporarily or accidentally. Air, remember, is spirit, and land is body. Just remember that when you're reading it. Article 6. Every trademark duly registered in the country of origin shall be admitted for registration and protected in the form originally registered in the other countries of the Union. I am going to highlight that again. Every trademark duly registered in the country of origin shall be admitted for registration and protection and protected in the form originally registered in the other countries of the Union. That's what I'm getting at, people. When you have everything taken care of, you prove life. How do you prove life? You prove life through recording a Minnesota Rule 220 the proper way. Now you pull the chorion from the afterbirth position into you, the lesser into the greater. Now you prove life. Then what do? You turn around and you get an assumed name or a DBA on the registered vessel that was created for you, probably within 2 to 3 weeks of your actual birth. And now you have your life and a commercial vessel that is completely protected globally. Now it's basically a living man and his toy boat. Can they ever be mixed up? Can the living man ever be mixed up with the boat? No, he can't. Can he ever be held liable? No, he can't. Who gets to rule over the boat? The man does, because he's the ship captain. Is he the law of the boat? Yes, he is. What flag does his boat fly? The flag of the United States of America. Who protects his boat? The United States of America. How is the boat secured? Who pays for it? It was secured by the maternal afterbirth. In other words, that is the salvation. It's the thing that indemnifies the vessel itself. I'll call it the Jesus. This is a win-win-win-win-win-win situation. I'll read it, Article 6 again. Every trademark duly registered in the country of origin shall be admitted for registration and protected in the form originally registered in the other countries of the Union. Goes on to say, nevertheless, the following marks may be refused or canceled. 1, those which are of such a nature as to prejudice or prejudice rights acquired by third parties in the country in which protection is applied for. 2, those which have no distinctive character or which consist exclusively of signs or indications which serve in trade to designate the kind, quality, quantity, destination, value, place of origin, or date of production, or which have become customary in the current language or in a bona fide and unquestioned usages of the trade of the country in which protection is sought. In arriving at a decision as to the distinctiveness of the character of a mark, all the circumstances of the case must be taken into account, and in particular, the length of time that such mark has been in use. What is the mark? It's your John Hancock. That's the mark. That's why I started with the Hancock movie, because it's the mark. It's your signature. Okay, where am I here? In arriving at the decision of distinctive, okay, in particular length of time. Okay, 3, those which are contrary to morality or public order. Contrary to morality or public order. It is to be understood that a mark cannot be considered as contrary to public order for the sole reason that it does not conform to some legislative requirement concerning trademarks, except in circumstances where this requirement itself relates to public order. Public order. Again, when you do what's required, you pull everything out of the public anyway. The following shall be deemed the country of origin. I'm almost done. I'm going to finish with, I won't get to 6 tonight. The country of the Union, where the applicant has an actual and genuine industrial or commercial establishment. Genuine industrial or commercial establishment. And if he has not such an establishment, the country of the Union, where he has his domicile. And if he has not a domicile in the Union, the country of his nationality, in the case where he is under the jurisdiction of the country of the Union. In no case shall the renewal of the registration of a trademark in country of origin involve the obligation of renewal of the registration of the mark in other countries of the Union in which the mark has been registered. In other words, the only place you have to worry about registering this assumed name is here. Once it's registered here, it's registered globally, and it's protected globally. The benefits of a priority shall subsist in trademark applications filed in the period allowed by Article 4, even when the registration of the country of origin is only completed after the expiration of such period. The provisions of paragraph 1 do not preclude the right of requiring from an applicant a certificate in due form as to the registration of his mark issued by the competent authority of the country of origin. Here it is. But no legal authentication of such certificate shall be required. When you're doing this, you really don't need to have all that other garbage. You really don't need to authenticate the birth record to get this done properly. Again, I'm going to just finish up tonight with this. There's only 2 things that ultimately have to be done. You need to understand what Minnesota Rule 220 is all about. It's you laying claim to that point back there in time and space, back there, in my case, September 19th, 1960. It's me making the claim as being one of the 2 owners of that event. The only other claimant is my mother. She's the only one with any property at stake, and that's the ship, the wreck that crashed ashore after baby arrived. And the other thing is to get your ship of state, get your membership under your control. You need to re-register that original certificate. See, I have a certification of birth registration for Curtis Richard Kallenbach, all caps. That is a commercial vessel secured by my mother's DNA. It's not my property, but I have to register it back to me if I want to use it. If I don't register it back to me, somebody else is going to use it. And they're going to use it against me, by the way. So ultimately, that's it. Again, the Hancock thing, I just want people to open their eyes to what's all around them every single day. I don't care whether it's music, movies, books. It's all over the place. And I really am kind of embarrassed that I feel like they're laughing at us. Or maybe they're not. Maybe they're sad. Maybe the people that are doing this to us are tired of doing it to us. But they can't come out and tell us that they've done it. They need us to finally do something. And remember this, is that today I had a nice talk this earlier today with the buddy Kevin. The moment of your arrival is the alpha moment of your life. It's the beginning. And if you can understand what I'm about to say, it's going to make a lot of difference in your life. The end of your life. I can already tell you when the end of your life is right now. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is today. Today is the last day of your life. In every one of us, all of us listening, everybody throughout history, they all died today. Because when I breathe my last breath, it's not going to be tomorrow, it's going to be today. So understand that today is the omega moment in your life. The alpha is the beginning point, and today is the last day of your life. It's always the last day. When the day you die, it will be today when you die. So we have to start thinking about that. When all change occurs today, everything happens today. So if you want to make some big changes, you don't wait till tomorrow. You have to do it today, because it's the only time we have. On that note, I'm going to go rest. I can't talk anymore. So thanks, everybody. Got to go. Later.